all the chapter of 2 Chronicles 21. And then if we have some time at the end, we'll go look at the prophecy of Obadiah. If we don't get to that, we'll pick it up Wednesday night. Wednesday night is kind of a short lesson. It's 2 Kings chapter 4, some of the miracles of Elisha. So it's that one chapter. So we may leave Obadiah if we need to, according to how things go this morning. So 2 Chronicles 21 will be our main place this morning. Hey, Andrew, if I can't get on my slides, I don't have a control here. There we go. Thank you, sir. Okay, let's look at the kings again. We'll see the same chart several times this morning because things, as Stephen said, which tonight get a little complicated in this section here because of the names and the way things bounce back and forth. So we'll get this morning the end of Jehoshaphat, and then over in Israel we got Ahab with his wife, wicked wife Jezebel. They have three children that are prominent in the Bible narrative here. Ahaziah, his oldest son, will be the first king after Ahab is dead. That's going on now. Then Jehoram will take the throne next because Ahaziah gets killed. And then eventually we'll see the daughter Athaliah come into play here. So that's over in Israel. In Judah, we also have a Jehoram, the son of Jehoshaphat, who would be our king as soon as Jehoshaphat dies. So we got Jehoram, the name in both sides here. And then Jehoram marries Athaliah over in Israel, bringing the two kingdoms even closer together. They have a son named Ahaziah. So we got Ahaziah on both sides of the chart now. Okay. And then of all things, Athaliah actually becomes queen in not Israel, but in Judah for 6 or 7 years. So that'll come on later on there. So this is the kind of a complicated little chart here that we'll be seeing several times this morning. We'll review it through here. So the chapter starts off here. Jehoshaphat rested with his fathers, was buried with his fathers in the city of David. Jehoram, his son, reigned in his place. So we've got the end of the life of Jehoshaphat. He became king at age 35, reigned 25 years. Who was king before Jehoshaphat? Who was Jehoshaphat's father? Somebody. Asa, remember that name? So Asa reigned for 41 years, Jehoshaphat for 25 years, both of them good kings. So we've had 66 good years in Judah, 66 years of good kings with these two kings, Asa and his son Jehoshaphat. So we'll get into his son then, Jehoram, the next one this morning. So 25 years, he did what's right in the sight of the Lord. Good check mark. Everything was great from him there, that standpoint. What's the one biggest negative on Jehoshaphat's record that you think about? Who did he align himself with? Ahab, king in Israel, which wound up in the marriage of the two children, as we mentioned earlier. However, as good as he was, the high places were not destroyed. Jehoshaphat worshiped Jehovah, but the high places, the places where they had been doing the idolatry, was not destroyed. And the people did not turn their total hearts back to God. Yes, they worshiped God, they worshiped Jehovah, but their heart was not totally into it. So what does that make? When Jehoshaphat is gone, leading them in the good things of worshiping Jehovah, the high places are still there. Their heart's not turned back. What's that make it real easy to do? Right back into idolatry. And that's what happens when we get into Jehoram then. So Jehoshaphat and Ahaziah, Ahab's dead, so Ahaziah is reigning now. Jehoshaphat's still reigning. So we get a little bit of a time where he tries to align himself with Ahaziah. They go and try to build some ships together. They're going to go attack Tarsus. But God was totally against this. He destroyed their ships, and that was kind of the end of that. Okay. So Jehoshaphat dies, and now Jehoram, his son, is reigning in his place. So we go back to our chart again. We got Jehoshaphat, we got Jehoram over there, Jehoram over here, and of course the marriage of Athaliah, and like I said, their son Ahaziah and Athaliah. They get that a little later on. I keep putting it up there because it puts the whole picture up there to look at then. So we got Jehoram and Jehoram. All right, Jehoram and Judah now. So let's don't get them mixed up. This morning we'll be talking about Jehoram and Judah all the way through. Jehoram and Judah has 6 brothers, and they're named there in the record. And Jehoshaphat, well blessed by the Lord because he worshiped the Lord and did what was right in his sight. So he had plenty to give. So he gave great gifts to his sons. He even gave them silver, gold, and cities. However, he gave the kingdom to his oldest son, Jehoram, which was a standard thing to do. Jehoram then got his kingdom established. And what's the first thing we read about him doing? 66 years of good kings. Now what's Jehoram going to do? Almost first thing. He's going to kill all of his brothers. That's one way to make sure that you are the king, right? Wipe out everybody else so you get it. So Jehoram killed all of his brothers so he would have the throne. 32 when he became king, and he reigned 8 years in Jerusalem. This is Jehoram in Judah now. 8 years there. However, he did not follow the ways of his father and his grandfather. He was wicked. Rather, he walked after the kings of Israel. Specifically, the text says, after King Ahab, which is the most wicked king we've had in Israel thus far is Ahab. So he would be influenced by who? Jehoram would be influenced by who's he married to? Yeah. He met by Athaliah, the wicked daughter of Ahab and Jezebel, who he's married to, his wife. Great influence from her there. So Jehoram was married to Ahab and Jezebel's daughter, Athaliah, and he did evil in the sight of the Lord. So the 66 years of good in Judah are gone. And now Jehoram's doing the wicked things there. However, God did not destroy him because of the promise he had made to David. Okay? So if I want to read about this promise that God had made to David, where would I go look? Second Samuel chapter, I heard somebody say it back here. 2 Samuel chapter 7. But here's the verse in 2 Chronicles 21. The Lord would not destroy the house of David because of the covenant he had made with David, since he had promised to give him a lamp to him and his sons forever. Remember that word forever. We're going to talk about it in a minute. The promise he made. 2 Chronicles 21:7 is also listed over in our 2 Kings text as well there. He would not destroy it. Even though the wickedness there, he would not destroy it because of the promise he had made to his David. So let's take this a second and go back and look at that. We won't spend a lot of time on this. So back in 2 Samuel chapter 7, this is verses 13 and 14. Text says, he, that is Solomon. Remember, David wanted to build God a house, and God said, no, I haven't asked anybody to build me a house. But your son Solomon will build me a house, and I will build him a house that will last forever. So there's that term forever again in there. So verse 13, he, Solomon, shall build a house for my name. I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. Forever. Verse 14, I'll be his father, he shall be my son. He commits iniquity and known. Now, let's jump down later on then in the same chapter when David now is thanking God for the promise that he had made to him. So verse 27, he says, "You, O Lord of hosts, God of Israel, have revealed this to your servant, saying, I will build you a house." Solomon's going to build David a house, but God's going to build a house for Solomon and his descendants that's going to last forever. Therefore, your servant has found it in his heart to pray this prayer to you. So David is praying this prayer because of the promise he's made to him. And now, O Lord, you are God, your words are true. You have promised this goodness to your servant. Now, therefore, let it please you to bless the house of your servant, that it may continue forever before you, as it were forever again. For you, O Lord God, have spoken it, and with your blessing, let this house of your servant be blessed forever. So in a minute, we'll get to it when we get to the end of the thing. So we'll talk about these two verses a little bit. I'm going to talk about that word forever for a little bit there. Okay, so going back to our narrative now, just wanted to stick that in because that's the promise that was referenced here in 2 Chronicles chapter 21, verse 7. So Edom and Libnah revolt against Jehoram. Libnah is just a small city outside Jerusalem, but Edom, of course, more significant there that they would turn and fight against the nation of Judah. David had subdued them back in his day, but now they're raising it up. So you get a new king in, and Edom decides to revolt against them there. 2 Chronicles 21, verse 11 now says, "Moreover, he made high places in the mountains of Judah and caused," this is he being Jehoram, the king, "and caused the inhabitants of Jerusalem to commit harlotry and led Judah astray." So 2 or 3 questions from this verse. How did he cause the inhabitants of Jerusalem? Forget to commit harlotry a minute. Why was he the one that caused it, is my question. Why did Jehoram cause them to do this sinful thing we're going to talk about here in a minute? Why was Jehoram the one the cause of it? Did he make them go out and worship the Baals? No, but it's a leadership type thing. Jehoram's the king, right? And he sets it up, makes it convenient. The places, the high places are there. Altars are set up to worship with. And people hadn't turned their hearts back to Jehovah. Remember that from earlier. And so he set everything up and just laid it out on the table for them. So he calls them to commit, and he says to commit harlotry. Why was that term used? Think about a marriage relationship. You have a man and a wife, and the man is unfaithful and goes out to another woman. How does that compare to what is going on here? Who are the people of Judah supposed to be worshiping? Jehovah God, right? And now they are worshiping the Baals, the idols. And so therefore they're committing harlotry. And so he says that he, Jehoram, had caused the people to commit harlotry and led them astray, led them away from God. So not only was he wicked in what he has done, influenced by Athaliah, but now he's bringing that over into the kingdom, and Judah turns away from God. Thoughts on that, anybody? So, a little thing here. Responsibilities of leadership. Who was responsible for leading the nation of Judah? Well, Jehoram was, the king. Where do our responsibilities come in? And this could be a husband leading his family. He can lead them astray. Every note of a husband that led the family off in a different direction where they should be going from worshiping God. How about elders in a church? Ever on an eldership to lead the entire congregation off in where they shouldn't go? How about teachers? Our teachers, even in the classroom, teaching the wrong things and get the wrong things set in the mind of our children. How about you? And any influence you might have on someone who has to be watching you in your life. The influence you have over your family, your children, your grandchildren. We all have a leadership responsibility. And I like the lesson in this verse here that we can lead those who are watching us astray. We need to be careful about that. Now we get a little unusual situation come up here. Jehoram got a letter from Elijah. Now, what's strange about that? Where's Elijah? What's already happened to Elijah? He was taken up in the whirlwind. Went back in 2 Kings chapter 2, verse 11 here. So he's gone. For a number of years he's been gone. So how does Jehoram get this letter from Elijah? Well, nobody knows. To kind of sum it all up in a hurry. Some say it was sent from heaven by an angel, from Elijah in heaven. Some say it was a prophecy he foretold about the defection of Jehoram and left the letter with Elisha to give to Jehoram. So it was from Elijah, left there as a prophecy of what Jehoram would do. Some say it's Elijah is written here and it really should be Elisha. Some say that this Elisha is not the same Elisha that was translated, that we're used to the main prophet. It's a different Elijah, I mean. And I can read you a longer list here of speculations by different people as to who this Elijah is. But he got this letter. So let's read. Freddie, can you read back there? Read 2 Chronicles 21, 12 through 15. Freddie, if you will.
But have walked in the ways of the kings of Israel, have made Judah and Jerusalem play the harlot, like the harlotry of the house of Ahab, and also have killed your brothers. Thus your father's household, who were better than yourself. Behold, the Lord will strike your people with a serious affliction, children, your wives, and all your possessions. You will become very sick with the disease of your intestines. Still, your intestines come out by reason of sickness day by day.
Pretty gross, huh? So your intestines come out. So here's this letter that was delivered to Jehoram from Elijah, recounting exactly what's going on. How he turned the people away, the verse we already looked at. How he killed all his brothers, and the text says here, we're better than you were. And then he makes this prophecy here of the affliction that's going to come to the nation, and specifically to Jehoram, that he would become sick and gradually get worse, and his intestines come out. Well, if you're teaching this to kids, here's a good time. The kids are ready to get into this grossy stuff. So, anyhow. So having got this letter, the next thing we get to is an attack on the nation of Judah. The Philistines, of course, had been a thorn all along. David had put them down. And the Arabians, from down toward Egypt, come in and attack Jehoram. All of his sons are killed. Notice that. Verse 17. They invaded. They came up against to Judah and invaded it, carried away all the possessions that were found in the king's house, also his sons and his wives. This is pretty major. There's not a son left to him, except What's the except? And why is there an except here? What's the thread? What's the thread that's got to go through here? David, okay? Do you remember the words in Matthew chapter 1, verse 1? The very first words of the New Testament. The genealogy of Jesus Christ, the son of, now stop a minute. To the Jewish nation, even in New Testament times, who was the father of their nation? Abraham, okay? Abraham's our father. Remember I'm telling Jesus that? But this verse, the very first verse in Matthew chapter 1, verse 1, genealogy of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. The inspired writer lists David first. Why? That's the thread. Jesus Christ is coming through the thread of David. So when it says all of his sons were killed, but one, that thread's going to continue. Okay, through God's providence. And it's not the only time it's going to be that tight, like that. So all of his sons are killed in this attack. And now we get toward the end. He smote Jehoram with this incurable disease of his bowels, whatever it was. We just read about that prophecy that was coming there. He suffered for 2 years. Before he died. And then he was buried in the city of David, but not in the tombs. And notice this verse. He departed without being desired. I guess in the old King James, but the New King James, the other verses here say that died and no one cared, basically. Okay, he died and no one cared. I'd like to have that said about you. In fact, some translations and some things really lead to the fact that people were glad that when he's died. They were glad he was dead and gone. Not a very good thing to say about you. Okay. Let me back up and make one comment, so I don't forget it. Back on verse 17, when it says that all the sons were killed but one, the name it gives there is Jehoahaz. Well, Jehoahaz and Ahaziah, when we put Ahaziah as the son after Jehoshaphat is going to reign, same person. Don't let Jehoahaz and Ahaziah in this case get you confused. Look at 2 Chronicles 22, verse 1, you'll see it there. So he died to no one's sorrow, the text says there. In fact, good people in Judah felt a relief that he was gone. And he's succeeded by his son Ahaziah. We've been through that several times. I guess we'll see it again probably here in a minute. So departed with no one caring. Let's go back to 2 Samuel 7, those verses we looked at a minute, and make a couple applications from that right quick as we go through here. He says, I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. This is God talking about the house that he's going to build for Solomon. Solomon's going to build God a house, but God's going to build Solomon a house. And I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. The word forever is used in at least 3 different ways in Scripture. Do you remember, I didn't go back and look the verse up. You remember back in the law of Moses, if a man had a servant and he freed that servant, but the servant didn't want to be free, he's going to bring him back here to him. What did he do? Remember what he did to his ear? Taking the doorpost and with an awl, A-W-L, awl, and put a hole through his earlobe to indicate the fact that he had come back to him. And it says that he would be his servant forever. How long can forever be in that case? Lifespan, right? Till a man dies. So that's one use you have of the word forever. That's for a lifespan. Also, the word forever is used to talk about the length of a nation's existence or a dispensation type thing. But the word forever is used also to talk about forever eternity. Okay, if you ever see the words forever and ever, that's always going to be eternity in that case there. That's what it is here. I'll establish the throne of his kingdom forever. Forever. It's a promise. Promise that God is making to David. I will establish his throne, which will be the lineage of David forever. Of course, he does that through Jesus Christ. Then the next part, David says that you have promised to your servant, you revealed it to me, that you're going to build a house for me. And therefore, I have found it in my heart, because of this promise you made, to pray this prayer to you. So God made David a promise. David took that promise in, and because of the joy, the expression in his heart he had, he wanted to pray this prayer to God because of it. And then he says, now, O Lord God, you are God, and your words are true, and you have promised this goodness to your servant. So 3 points I think we get out of this that might help us out a little bit here. God's revealed his word to us, and he's made us certain promises in his word. One of those promises is eternal life. Just like he made David a promise here of his throne lasting through eternity. He's made some very specific promises to us. So maybe we should feel in our hearts a desire to pray to God and thanking for these promises he's made to us. Very similar to what David did. Pray to him from the heart. And realize, as David was realizing here, that God's words are true and he will keep his promises. You think there's any doubt in David's mind when he prayed this prayer that God's going to keep this promise he's made? Do we have any doubt in our mind about the promises God makes to us? So I see a little parallel here we might take a lesson from there. Okay, thoughts from anybody here? I know we got a lot of good students. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think there's a major example here of leadership and the failure of it. And then we got a lot of good examples like Asa and Jehoshaphat of good leadership. Okay, it's not all negative. Now, over in Israel, it was all negative, but there's a lot of good examples in the text of good leadership. But here, specifically, this verse says that Jehoram, he caused them to go astray. Okay, Brent? Yep. Now, you didn't make them remarry. You know, it's just like Jehoram didn't make them go worship the Baals type thing. But when they did, he caused them to commit the harlotry there. This is very similar parallel to Matthew 5:32 there. When you cause them to commit adultery by the remarriage type situation there. Good, thank you. All right, Colton.
To your last point, there of 2 Samuel 7, he says, "Do as you have promised, so that your name will be exalted forever." And here we are, exalting his name.
Yep, I promise forever. Yeah, 2 Samuel 7 is just so rich. Okay, 2 Samuel 7 is full of. 2 Samuel 7, some of you remember Bob and his flashlight stories. Everybody remember that? Bob Walter would say, if I wake you up in the middle of the night and put a flashlight in your eyes and ask you where the promise to David is, you got to tell me it's 2 Samuel 7. If I wake you up in the middle of the night with a flashlight. And he had a lot of things like that. He was saying, I'm going to put a flashlight in your eyes and I want the answer right quick. This is one of them. 2 Samuel 7 is one of those chapters that would be a flashlight chapter to Bob. So. Okay, one more lesson. We get out of this, I think. That is back when it says that Jehoram yielded to the influence of Athaliah. Of course, she got her influence from her parents, Ahab and Jezebel. So I have two questions. I should have put them on the screen one at a time. They're going to both go up here together. The two questions. Before you get to the second one, think about the first one a minute. Who do you influence? Who do you influence? Do you influence your spouse? Do you influence your children? Your grandchildren? If you're in a leadership role as an elder, do you influence the congregation? Sure you do. If you're teaching in one of our classrooms, do you influence the children in your classroom? Do you have people at work that you influence? So who do you influence? And how is that influence? How's my influence? Is it Asa or Jehoshaphat, or is it a Jehoram? And then the second part of that is, well, back up. I got them backwards. Who will influence us? The first one. I just answered the second one. Who will influence us is the first one. I'm going to put that up there. Who influences you? Again, it could be your spouse. Could be some particular person that you really look up to. Could be that TV that you sit and look at more than we should, probably. Could be some politician. Who influences you? So, two questions. Who will influence us? Who do we allow to influence us? And then who do we influence? Maybe, just like I said earlier, maybe we're influencing people we don't even know we're influencing because they're looking up and watching us. So, any other thoughts on that point? Tony?
Disobedience or whatever because somebody else they're raised, etc. But just because there's bad influence doesn't mean we have to follow it. That as a lesson. Hey, that's what I told you.
Yeah. We can look at somebody and say, "That's not the life I want." Right? Go the other direction over here. Ephesians 5:1. Therefore, be imitators of God as dear children. Of course, you know what Paul said in 1 Corinthians 11, verse 1, to imitate me as I imitate Christ. You want to follow somebody, you want to let somebody influence you. Think about those two verses there. So, a careful man I ought to be, a little fellow follows me. I do not dare to go astray, for fear he'll go the self-same way. And then this one, the father said to his son, be careful where you walk. The son responded, please remember, I'll follow in your footsteps. We have a lot of influence. We need to realize that. Okay, we don't have time, and I didn't think we would, to cover Obadiah, so we're going to stop here. But I encourage you to read it. It's one little chapter, I think 17 verses or something like that. Obadiah, we'll look at it first thing Wednesday night, and then get into 2 Kings chapter 4 with those three little miracles of Elisha. That'll be Wednesday night's things there. Anything else from anybody? Okay, we got about a minute left according to my clock up here, so we'll stop there. Thank you.